Assalamualaikum to our lecturer, Sir Syed Kushairi. We are from Group 3, JAC2207A, which consists of 5 students, which are Khalikah, Nurul Syafiqah Aina, Siti Nur Syamimi, Tuan Aisyatul Makfirah, and lastly, me, I am Azrina Azrin. And today, we will be presenting on the topic of environmental auditing. These are the topic or contents that we will discuss in detail later. Firstly, the introduction of environmental auditing or EA for short, objective and advantages of EA. Next, the example of EA in a manufacturing company, environmental audit report, environmental management system or EMS, 4 pillars of EMS adoption, commitment of EMS, and lastly, the conclusion for this topic. Firstly, I will explain the introduction of environmental auditing or EA. Environmental auditing is actually a tool used in environmental management to assess how particular activity affect the environment in comparison to the set standard or criteria. There are various forms of environmental auditing that depend on the standard used and also the objective of audit being carried out. For example, operational procedure, feasibility study, business operation, structure, commercial and industrial advancement, and also industrial trade. The function of environmental auditing is also to enhance the current human activity in an effort to lessen their damaging environmental effects, in which the auditor will conduct a systematic, documented evaluation of an organization's environmental effects and generate environmental audit report. Secondly, it is also to boost investor confidence and satisfy other stakeholder needs. The data available may be utilized not only for management information, but also to provide the material for external environmental reporting. Besides that, all organizations today acknowledge that the significance of environmental issue and start to realize that a wide range of interested parties will be reviewing their environmental performance too. Next, the definition of environmental auditing. The word audit first originated from the financial sector of business industry. In general, auditing is a systematic evaluation of processes and activities that includes analysis, tests, and confirmations, with the aim of verifying that they adhere to the internal policy, legal requirements, and also established practices. The first definition, according to the International Chamber of Commerce, 1989, environmental auditing is a management tool comprising a systematic, documented, periodic, and objective evaluation of how well environmental organization, management, and equipment are performing, with the aim of helping to safeguard the environment by facilitating management control of practices and assessing compliance with company policy, which would include regulatory requirements and standards applicable. As for the second definition, the Institute of Internal Auditors, IIA, Research Foundation defines that environmental audit as an integral part of an environmental management system, whereby management determines whether the organization's environmental control system are adequate to ensure compliance with regulatory requirements and also internal policy. It basically comprises a systematic, documented, and objective evaluation with the aim of assessing significant audit data to ascertain if the organization's operations correspond to the audit criteria and additional relevant environmental regulation standards. We move into the next part, the objective of environmental auditing. Different organizations may have different objectives for their environmental auditing activities that are determined by the aims and goals set by the organization management, and also after the interests of all stakeholders have been taken into account. Generally, environmental auditing's main objective is to help environmental protection and also to reduce threat to human health. And this is some of the primary objectives of environmental auditing, which are: 1. To develop a performance-based framework for the design and implementation of an environmental management system, EMS. 2. To determine the effectiveness of the EMS and technology. 3. To check the adherence to the application national, local or other law and regulation. 4. To make the company's internal commitment to environmental policies more visible and enforced. 5. To reduce the risk that people will experience from environmental, health and safety issues. 6. To promote effective environmental management and uphold public trust. 7. To standardize the practices for handling and storing raw material. 8. Programs and facilities set up for the treatment, disposal or storage of hazardous waste, solid waste or liquid effluents. Thus, it is crucial to keep in mind that the objective of an extensive environmental audit program should not be restricted to the areas of compulsory regulatory compliance, and it also can go above and beyond what's required by law as long as it gives the benefit to the companies. That's all from me. Next, I will pass the presentation to Nurul Syafika Aina. Thank you.
Now we have come to the part of this presentation, which are the advantages of environmental audit. The role of environmental auditing has grown rapidly for the last 2 decades in the corporate world because various industries are beginning to realize the advantages of the environmental audit in managing the environmental risk of their entities. The first advantage is it can increase the management overall effectiveness. The environmental auditing helps the management by revealing the weaknesses of the organization structure within the company so that it can give opportunities to the management to take appropriate action to overcome the weaknesses. Thus, with the help of environmental audit, they can give assurance to the management that any or prospective concern will be identified and indirectly help the management to become more effective in the managing the risk. The second advantage is to help enhance the corporate attractiveness. Environmental audit will help the management of the company to avoid any negative publicity such as violating the rules and regulations, and also it can assure a worthy reputation as one of the good corporate players towards the stakeholders. Furthermore, enhancing corporate attractiveness also can help increase the number of customer loyalty. The third advantage is increase the awareness of the employees toward the company's environmental responsibility. This is because with the presence of environmental audit, it will help the company to obtain all the information toward the company environmental responsibility, and also it helps in developing a culture that is concerned about the environment. Thus, indirectly, it can also increase the awareness of the employees toward the company's environmental responsibility, since they are also exposed to the responsibility. The fourth advantage is that it can serve as a mechanism to ensure that the company complies with the environmental standard. Environmental audit involves in investigation into a company's environmental policies and procedures to determine if the company complies with the federal and state environmental regulation. So, with the presence of environmental audit, it can ensure that the company can comply with the environmental rules and policy. The next topic that we will be discussing is the example of environmental audit in the manufacturing industry. The first example is the Operation Site Compliance Audit. Operation Site Compliance contains all the technical, business standard, law and the procedure that manufacturing must adhere into their business activity. Environmental audit compliance is used to evaluate the business operation site in order to assess the business current environmental practice. The components that will be assessed are the adequacy and the thoroughness of the method for handling, storing and disposal of dangerous and non-dangerous material used in the manufacturing as well the environmental risk management procedure. The environmental auditor will come up with an audit report based on the company's ability with the compliance, and they also will suggest an improvement for the company in terms to comply with the regulations. The second example is to examine a company's standard operating process on the energy usage. The auditor will examine the organization's standard operating process to ascertain how much power, electricity or other fuel each task will consume. For example, Hitachi introduced Emilia, which is a device to measure the electricity. By utilizing Emilia, the environmental auditor may be able to examine and standardize the power-saving features on each of their facilities to reduce standby energy consumption by using the combination of manual cut-off management tool.
Okay, now, environmental audit report. Reporting is a management tool which assists the monitoring and assessment of the performance of a process or system. The quality, usefulness and credibility of reporting can be enhanced by verification and validation. Environmental audit report means a report prepared by an environmental auditor and is required to be submitted. Provision of an environmental audit report for use by an organization or activity in dealings with environmental groups, government and the mass media. Provision of information required by insurance companies, financial institutions, shareholders and other stakeholders. Reports should contain factual observations and reasoning and the documentation of the processes. All findings should be presented clearly and accurately based on valid and documented evidence. Environmental audit report is one of the useful means of demonstrating an organization or institution's commitment to openness and transparency. If an institute believes it has nothing to hide from its stakeholders, then it should feel confident enough to make its environmental audit reports freely available to those who request them. As a basic rule, environmental audit reports should be made available to all stakeholders. Next, there are 5 things should be considered and focused on environmental audit report. First, the audit report preparation. The audit report shall be prepared for submission to the Department of Environment, which is DOE, according to the guidelines provided. It should also fulfill all the requirements expected of a good audit report. Otherwise, DOE shall return these audit reports to the audit team leader for the necessary corrections and amendment. Basically, the reports should contain the following items, which are audit administrative details, regulatory compliance summary, main report including audit findings, and recommendations and its attachments. Next, audit findings. The findings will fall into the 2 categories consist of compliance and non-compliance. Compliance means there is sufficient and appropriate evidence to demonstrate the particular regulatory requirement has been complied with. Meanwhile, for non-compliance, it means clear evidence has been collected to demonstrate the particular regulatory requirement has not been complied with. These audit findings can be explained by stating regulation title, regulation number, and description of its compliance or non-compliance. Thirdly, audit recommendations. The audit is intended to be a useful exercise for the organization, and a key part of that is for the auditor to develop audit recommendations that are environmentally beneficial and practical. An appropriate recommendation addresses the root cause of the problem for the purpose of effective and expeditious corrective actions. The auditor shall submit audit recommendations in the form described in the schedule to include proposed corrective or preventive or mitigative actions that shall be undertaken to eliminate, reduce, control, or mitigate adverse impacts on the environment. Then, audit report submission. The environmental audit report should be approved by designated registered lead auditor, and a copy will be sent straight to the Department of Environment, which is DOE State Office. All submissions should be made within 14 days from the date of the audit or within any other deadline indicated. Lastly, audit report confidentiality. The audit report and associated audit notations are privileged information documents, and therefore confidentiality must be respected and appropriately safeguarded by the auditors and all reported recipients. The audit report shall not be made available to the public either by the auditor or by the DOE unless an injunction has been received by the DOE to release the report to the injured party. Therefore, without the written approval, no one, including the auditor or the auditee's representatives, shall make known of the content of the audit report to any other person. That's all from me. I pass to the next presenter.
Thank you, Kalika. Next, we move to the Environmental Management System, EMS. EMS is a set of processes and practices that enables an organization to reduce its environmental impacts and increase its operating efficiency. EMS aids businesses in developing a holistic approach to improve environmental performance, minimize risk, reduce business overhead. There are 3 types of EMS models that are available for different types of organization, which are ISO 14001, the Eco Management and Audit Scheme, and ISO 14005. In Malaysia, the national standard for EMS is identified as ISO 14001-2015. The adoption of a systematic approach to environmental management by implementing environmental management with the aim of contributing to the environmental pillar of the sustainability. ISO 14001-2015 was established to act as a framework to protect the environment and respond to the environment condition changes in balance with the socio-economic conditions. These standards aim to demonstrate compliance with the current and future statutory and regulatory requirements, also to protect the environment by preventing or mitigate adverse environmental impacts. ISO 14001 environmental management gives benefit to organization. First, helps organization to improve the environmental performance. Second, enhance brand image as an eco-friendly company. Third, provide assurance of a company legal compliance. Fourth, facilitate access to the growing green market. And fifth, cost saving through the efficient use of the resources and proper waste management. One of the companies in Malaysia who has adopted an environmental management system is Fujitsu Group. This company is a branch of a leading Japanese information and communication technology, ICT company.
In 2018, Fujitsu Group upgraded to a global integrated ISO 14001-2015 certification and is still continuously working to improve the EMS model while promoting the group-wide environmental management. The company promoted green purchasing activity, which led to establishment of the Fujitsu Green Procurement Policy. This policy drives activities to reduce carbon dioxide CO2 emission in the upstream supply chain and raise the awareness to conserve the water resources in the upstream supply chain. These eco-friendly activities are put in place to make sure that the clients may get products that ultimately lighten the load on the environment. Fascinatingly, Fujitsu collaborates with the client to protect the environment on a worldwide scale since they are a global company. Using the expertise and cutting-edge technology it created for its own environmental countermeasures, the company provides environmental solutions to their clients. This is the 4 pillars of EMS adoption. The first pillars of EMS adoption is the establishment of written environmental policy. The establishment of such policy is crucial to demonstrating an organization of dedication to responsible environmental management. In other words, the policy must reflect management's ongoing efforts to promote environmental responsibility in all aspects of company's operation, including strategic planning, project implementation, product offerings, and also services. An organization can express its values and also ideas about the benefits of protecting the environment while also protecting financial returns on its investment by establishing an environmental policy. The Malaysian National Environmental Policy emphasizes exercising respect and care for the environment in accordance with the highest moral and ethical standards besides conserving the natural ecosystem to ensure the integrity of the biodiversity. The second pillar of EMS adoption is the creation of environmental performance indicators and goals. It demonstrates the ongoing organizational commitment to carry out and apply earlier environmental policy. Management will analyze its environmental impacts and define the management objectives and targets for achieving its environmental goals in order to translate its written environmental promise into action. Third pillars of EMS adoption is the environment training program. It symbolizes the adopters' effort to guarantee that their staff members have the appropriate knowledge and are on the same page with regards to organizational environmental concerns. The primary goals of the training program is to create the knowledge and skills required to guarantee that all organization activities comply with the relevant environmental laws and also regulations. To instill these environmental concerns among the populace, this will involve developing improved management and also communication structures both inside and outside the organization. Fourth pillars of EMS adoption is environmental audit. Environmental audit is vital since it serves the organization periodically, evaluating and also recommending appropriate solutions and corrective measures. There are various forms of environmental audit depending on the standard used and the audit's objective. Environmental audit is used to investigate, understand, and identify. These are used to help to improve existing human activities with the aim to reduce the adverse effects of these activities on the environment. An environmental auditor will conduct a systematic documented examination of an organization's environmental effects and generate environmental audit report. There are many reasons for conducting an environmental audit, which include issues such as environmental legislation and pressure from customers.
Okay, next, commitment of environmental management system, EMS. Every firm should have an EMS that represents the regulations and laws that apply to their particular organization. The EMS addresses environmental concern by enacting policies with clear environmental objectives and targets, as well as developing strategies to guarantee that the firm complies with applicable laws. In order for the EMS to properly identify the essential measure, The organization must be aware of all areas of its environmental impact. Effective planning should contain both a reference to the corporate policy objective and a thorough understanding of the legal obligation. Implementing a successful EMS is strongly reliant on the following, but not limited to: collaborative pledges and thorough effort by management and staff inside the organization. There are some reasons why we should implement a good EMS for our company. First of all, to ensure that all organizational action adhere to relevant governing norms and regulatory requirements for environmental protection, both locally and globally. Next, to track ongoing attempts to improve environmental performance through effective organizational planning, economic investment, and required technical measures. This will ensure that environmental considerations are integrated into the organization's planning and decision-making processes. Employees should also be encouraged and enabled to contribute ideas for changes. Other than that, allocating adequate resources for environmental education, such as staff environmental awareness, accountability, and training program. It is critical to emphasize that employee competency, responsibility, and environmental awareness have a substantial impact on the performance of an environmental management program. Next, to establish a set of ethical environmental practices that should be followed by everyone in the organization as evidence of an ongoing commitment to environmental issues. Further, to practice and promote energy resource efficiency through cost-effective conservation and energy management program, including research and development project aimed at minimizing and reducing unfavorable environmental consequences produced by operations. For instance, the implementation of new environmentally friendly technologies in the manufacturing plant that can eliminate the emission of dangerous greenhouse gases. Moreover, to implement strong environmental stewardship in all company-owned buildings and properties by establishing clear standards for delegating responsibility and accountability across the organization. This includes a focus on environmental risk management effort in order to meet the objective of the environmental policy and applicable regulatory restriction. In addition, to be able to carry out emergency response plans as needed, as well as to undertake suitable restoration program for any negative environmental consequence produced by the organization's activity. Next, to ensure that all wastes, including sophisticated material, electronic equipment, chemicals, solid and biological wastage, are handled and disposed of in an efficient and proper manner in accordance with applicable environmental legislation and policies. Last but not least, to evaluate environmental performance through periodic reviews and audit in order to correct any weaknesses or disparities and ultimately to satisfy the objective of EMS adoption. Okay, next is conclusion. In conclusion, organizations all around the world, including their stakeholders, are increasingly concerned about the need to become more environmentally responsible in order to pursue long-term growth and development. As a result, implementing a sound environmental management system with excellent environmental policies, performance indicator, trainings, and environmental audit is becoming increasingly important and significant in order to support the sustainability of organizations as well as their products and services. The EMS makes certain that all procedures are documented and that all choices are accountable. The review method enables management to ensure that the EMS continues to provide an acceptable and effective system for compliance, reducing exposure to environmental risks, and improving the organization's environmental performance. The ability to correctly manage environmental externalities may provide provide the competitive advantage required for cooperative organizations to gain greater financial benefit in the future.